Hello there, in this video I will talk about my experience sewing with slant foot sewing machine. Here I have a Singer Slant O Matic and a 158 Kenmore. The Singer sewing machine was released in 1967 and the Kenmore probably was within 6 years after that. Take a look at the aesthetics. Note that the Singer sewing machine design, the presser foot rod is in a slanted position as well as the actual presser foot. While the Kenmore sewing machine, it is only the presser foot that is slanted. Notice the rod holding it is in straight vertical position. They are both vintage machines and they're good machines. As I compare these two machines, I will only focus on the slant foot action. I will disregard the feature-to-feature comparisons of these two machines. Because let's just establish they're both quality-built sewing machines. And they have been talked about in other forums and videos about its history, how to thread them, repair them, and other details. Yes, this was designed for better visibility and accessibility. Notice how it was worded. This was UX language 80 years ago. Because this was dated in 1944, I can only assume that this design was an improvement of the past sewing machines prior to 1944. Well, there is a difference on the first few seconds, maybe minutes, but over time, I kind of forget about it. As I am sewing, I tend to think of something else when I'm sewing, of course, because I'm focused on my project. Just various thoughts running through my head. And the last thing I'll worry about is my viewing angle. You have to consider the height of the person sewing, the height of the table, the height of the chair, and how is that chair positioned next to the table that holds the sewing machine. Whoever came up with this patent may have been a great engineer, but may not have been a real sewer. Just my opinion. The Husqvarna brand came up with their version of low shank slant foot too, and even a dual slant foot, also known as walking foot. This was very innovative back in the old days. I speculate that this was designed to minimize the puckering and getting a better fabric feed. I kind of have to agree on the puckering part. It does have an advantage to sewing certain fabrics. Let's assume that these machines are very good with sewing stable fabrics. So I put these two machines to the test by sewing slinky and stretch fabric. Is there a difference? I do notice that it feeds better than the typical low shank machines sold in this era. But again, puckering is very relative to the tension, the fabric pressure, the needle, the fabric layers, the pedal speed, and even the piercing power of the machine. The Singer machine did not like the stretch lace, but the Kenmore is fine with it. This test is not conclusive, as I'm only doing straight stitches. But as far as the feed and feel of different fabrics, this is such a gray area as far as what actually works and what doesn't. But I do lean towards it minimizes the puckering. The slant foot may have an advantage, but remember what I said about the variables. This Kenmore sewing machine, this is made in Japan. This is interesting. It's high shank, slant foot with extra high lift in the presser foot. Note that these are 3 different descriptions. Long before my YouTube filming days, I tested this machine and was able to sew 21 layers of muslin, 6 layers of vinyl, and 8 layers of denim. The difference is that extra high lift presser foot. If I can fit it under the presser foot, it wants to sew it. When I sew on this Kenmore machine, sure I see the slant, but I can definitely feel the advantage because of the striding action. Now this may not be so obvious if you are only sewing a few layers of fabric. I used to own a low shank vintage Kenmore, and I also own a heavy duty Morse made by Toyota. Both are low shank. I know it can sew heavy stuff, but the big difference is that distinct forward motion of the presser foot, which is better for sewing thick heavy stuff. You kind of have to experience sewing both era models to understand what I am saying. Here I will show you the one project where this machine was used. This slant foot Kenmore powered through this project really well. It weighs about 20 pounds. In other words, it's like having a semi-industrial sewing machine. Sewing heavy stuff is made possible also because of the weight of the machine. Both machines have similar weights, by the way, because I weighed them. But the Kenmore can tackle many layers of fabric because of the slant foot and the extra high lift of the presser foot. So the Japanese may have reinvented the wheel here and have improved upon the technology of the slant foot, which was started by Singer. For your information, Singer released other models that may look similar to the Slant O Matic machine, but has renamed the models and were not marketed as slant machines anymore. We can only speculate. Money? These machines were precision machines, may have cost more to make. From the 1970s onwards, Husqvarna, Bernina, Pfaff, Elna, and Singer were out competing each other. It was a fierce market. Brother, which is and still is based in Japan, claimed to have produced the first ever computerized sewing machine. New sewing trends were emerging, and eventually the low shank foot became the standard presser foot. Too many bells and whistles that came with sewing machines sold at a time, buyers got distracted with other trends in the sewing market. Slant foot, what? Some people do not know what it is.